Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the work session of the Portsmouth Planning Commission. Let me also at this time welcome Commissioner Hines. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Mr. Baldwin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also like to welcome Mr. Hines to the Planning Commission. And see, we're a little short-handed up there today, but hopefully that'll be taken care of before you get to your regular session. So, relatively light agenda for you today for the Planning Commission. You have two public hearing items. We're going to start off with CBE 22-07. That's Amy Mervine with the Chesapeake Bay exception.
Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
This is Amy Mervine, Senior Planner with the City of Portsmouth. There we go. For the benefit of our newer commissioners, I will provide a brief explanation of why the applicant's proposal is before you today. Back in the late 1980s, City Council adopted a Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area map, which designates certain properties as located within the Resource Protection Area, or RPA. This slide provides a simple explanation of the RPA. The RPA is located immediately adjacent to water bodies with tidal influence. It is composed of any tidal wetlands, which can be vegetated or a mudflat, as well as a 100-foot buffer of land. The 100-foot buffer is composed of a 50-foot seaward and 50-foot landward component. As I've listed here on this slide, the Planning Commission's role is to review accessory structures within the entire 100-foot buffer and any proposal within the 50-foot seaward buffer. Today's request is for the retention of an unpermitted gravel parking area within the entire 100-foot buffer, majorly of which is located within the 50-foot seaward buffer, which requires your review and approval. Under the circumstance of a denial by Planning Commission, an applicant may appeal the request to the Circuit Court. If appropriate, the Commission may request an amendment of an applicant's submittal to allow for a proposal that meets the intent of the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance. This Chesapeake Bay exception request involves the property at 200 East Road. The property includes two separate tracts, which is divided by East Road. The 0.34 acre property is in the Urban Residential UR zoning district. The property contains a 2,164 square foot single-family dwelling constructed in 1954. The property was platted prior to October 1st, 1989, and the tract of land located across East Road and adjoining the Elizabeth River is located entirely within the Resource Protection Area. Single family adjoins the property to the north across Willow Way, south, and west. Separate tracts of land are located across East Road to the east, adjoining the Elizabeth River. The applicant's proposal requests to retain an unpermitted gravel parking area, as well as proposing an ornamental cobblestone perimeter around the gravel area. The applicant was issued a notice on October 21st, 2021, declaring the constructed gravel parking area a violation of the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance. There is no record of the applicant having received a city approval for the improvement. The applicant's exception request was filed in response to the issued violation notice. This application was deferred from the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. The gravel parking area is 965 square feet and the access path is 273 square feet, for a total of 1,238 square feet of improvements. The gravel parking area is located majorly within the 50-foot seaward and requires an exception through Planning Commission. Per the city's zoning ordinance, off-street parking is prohibited on grass and other improved surfaces in residential zoning districts. Off-street parking shall be surfaced with asphalt, concrete, brick, stone pavers, aligned concrete strips, or an equivalent material. If Planning Commission approves the gravel to remain in place, the gravel area may not be utilized as off-street parking. If Planning Commission approves the utilization of a parking area, then the area shall be surfaced with an approved material, which is included in the conditions. An access path to a water-dependent facility may be administratively reviewed by staff per the City Code Chesapeake Bay Ordinance and is not part of this Chesapeake Bay exception request. A Water Quality Impact Assessment, or WQIA, is required for projects that include land disturbance within the RPA buffer. The required number of planting units is 4 and consists of 4 canopy trees, 8 understory trees, and 12 small shrubs, which have been chosen from the DCR Buffer Modification and Mitigation Manual plant list. Staff recommends denial of the Chesapeake Bay exception request for an unpermitted gravel parking area within the buffer. Staff is unable to support a violation of the Chesapeake Bay ordinance and improvements within the 50-foot seaward buffer that do not meet the exception criteria outlined in Portsmouth City Code, Section 9.1 Chesapeake Bay Ordinance. The purpose and intent of the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance is to minimize encroachments and land disturbance within the RPA. Should Planning Commission deny the Chesapeake Bay exception request, the applicant will be required to remove the gravel parking area and restore the buffer back to a vegetated state. If approved by Planning Commission, staff has proposed several conditions within the staff report. To my knowledge, no public comments have been received. I will now stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mervine. Commissioners, are there any questions of Ms. Mervine? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, our second item today is use permit 22-13, and Julie Chop will present that staff report.
Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. I'm Julie Chop, Principal Planner with the City of Portsmouth. This application is a request for a use permit for an event-space banquet hall in Suite 3981 in the Parkway Plaza Shopping Center, which is located at 3985 Twin Pines Road. The approximately 7.47 acre property is in the General Mixed Use Zoning District. The property contains a one-story, approximately 61,481 square feet, strip shopping center and associated parking fronting on Twin Pines Road. The suite designated for the proposed event space banquet hall to be named the niche venue is 3,600 square feet and is located towards the north end of the Parkway Plaza Shopping Center. To the north of the subject property is vacant land that is zoned conditional mixed-use, conditional multifamily urban residential, URMK. Across Twin Pines Road to the west contains mostly detached single-family dwellings in the Peachtree neighborhood that are zoned urban residential, UR. East of the property is the West Winds apartment development, which contains 60 units zoned URMK. And then to the south are additional suites within the Parkway Plaza Shopping Center. And then further south across Gateway Drive are commercial properties zoned GMU. The applicant has leased the suite and plans to operate an event space for wedding receptions, baby showers, professional seminars, corporate retreats, and meetings for no more than 70 to 80 guests. Events that are booked at this location may choose to obtain a single event ABC license. However, the applicant indicates that they plan to host minimal events that include alcohol. The niche venue will be available for rent Monday through Sunday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. The project narrative indicates that 3 employees will be hired to staff the establishment, and additional staff may be hired as needed. The applicant plans to incorporate security measures for the event space, including a security system that captures video footage inside and outside of the establishment. For events that are scheduled past 8 p.m., two security officers will be required for additional security. The conceptual site plan submitted with the application depicts vehicular access to the site via Twin Pines Road. The applicant plans to utilize a portion of the existing off-street parking spaces that are designated for the Parkway Plaza Shopping Center. The applicant has no current proposed site improvements, and no outdoor entertainment is proposed. The property is designated on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan for multifamily residential. Staff recommends approval of the applicant's use permit request with the recommended conditions. With the conditions, the proposed use is consistent with the location and is compatible with the surrounding area. As of yet, no comments from the public have been received regarding this application. This concludes my presentation, and I will now stand by for any questions from the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Chop. Commissioners, are there any questions of Ms. Chop? There are none. Thank you. Is that it, Mr. Ball?
Yes, the final item we did have on for work session, just as a discussion of changing your January Planning Commission meeting date. The normal Planning Commission meeting date is scheduled to be the same date the City Council does their organizational meeting. And according to Planning Commission standard operating procedures, the Planning Commission typically will move its meeting back 2 weeks. So that would be a meeting on January the 17th. Instead of January the 3rd.
Okay. Does that change, excuse me, does that change require a vote of the Planning Commission?
Yes, the Planning Commission would have to vote to set the
Okay.
meeting date.
Then we will have to do that during our regular
In
session.
the regular session,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. Any additional items, Mr. Baldwin?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baldwin, and Planning Commission staff. Commissioners, is there any further discussion? If there's none, this concludes the work session of the Portsmouth Planning Commission for October 4th. Our regular meeting will start promptly at 1:30 p.m. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you all to this very important meeting, Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, being held in the City Council chambers. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I will now confirm that all members of the Planning Commission are present by calling the roll. Commissioners, when I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Thaxton.
Present.
Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Page.
Present.
Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Curry.
Present.
Commissioner Hines.
Present.
5 members of the Planning Commission are present.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Commissioners, before you are the minutes of the September 6, 2022 public hearing. If there aren't any changes, we are in need of a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for the approval of the minutes.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes? Commissioner Page?
Yes.
Commissioner Curry?
Yes.
Commissioner Hines?
Abstain.
The minutes are approved by a vote of 4 and 1 abstention. Our next scheduled work session is Tuesday, November the 1st, 2022 at 12:30 p.m. City Council Chamber, followed by public hearing at 1:30 p.m. City Council Chamber. Items reviewed today will be presented to City Council for action at their November the 22nd public hearing or as otherwise noted. Planning Commission rules limit a speaker up to 5 minutes to speak. We also ask that everyone please silence your cell phones at this time if you have not already done so. Our first item, CBE-22-07, Glen Sheila. Patricia Hartline requests a Chesapeake Bay exception for a gravel parking area within the Resource Protection Area's 100-foot buffer at 200 East Road. The property is zoned urban residential UR and is further described as tax map 367, parcel 21. The Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan's future land use map recommends low to medium density, single-family residential development for the property. Our staff coordinator is Amy Mervine. Will the applicant or representative for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
Good afternoon, Commissioners and staff. My name is Patricia Hartline, residing at 200 East Road in Glen Sheila, and I am requesting an exception to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, allowing me to retain the existing gravel parking area. As an aside, my husband, Greg Hartline, spent the last 6 months of his life under the weight of presenting an improved submission of this application. His death came a week following the final submission after 3 attempts. His knowledge of the transactions were much better than mine, so please bear with me. My husband had no idea that approval was needed to make this improvement to what he believed was our private property. He sincerely felt he was solving a long-existing problem of the deep ruts caused by trucks parking in the area in question. We don't park there on a regular basis. I do have photos of city trucks parking there, tractor trailers parking there, and you're welcome before or after to see all of those photos, but it happens quite frequently. According to Section 6, Findings of Fact, a project information and proposed use of the property, the area in question is referred to as an improvement. In my mind, an improvement is not normally a bad thing. Over the years, we have filled ruts caused by dump trucks, garbage trucks, construction vehicles, delivery trucks, and even 18-wheelers. The action of putting down the gravel was merely to protect the area from the damage caused by the heavy trucks. It also prevents standing rainwater from remaining in those ruts, and I know this is a concern in mosquito season. We solicited Stokes Environmental Associates, a 32-year-old company specializing in environmental assessments, to perform the water quality inspection assessment and Chesapeake Bay exception application. It took this professional company 3 attempts to meet the planning union requirements and successfully complete an acceptable exception document. No viable vegetation was removed, only weeds. No trees were cut down, and we currently have a single sassafras tree with 3 volunteers, and the Spartina alterniflora is thriving. The area in question is covered with natural permeable gravel that prevents erosion. Greg specifically chose this material to allow water penetration. I believe gravel is an acceptable surface for this sort of use. And I'm having trouble understanding why unnatural permeable pavers would be a better solution than gravel, especially at a prohibitive cost of totaling well over $10,000, and it looks artificial. So if I must scrape up the gravel and replant weeds, then the original problem of the ruts still exists. If required, I'm willing to comply with the planting and mitigation plan prepared by Stokes Environmental, but again, I'm having difficulty understanding why, by removing nothing, I have to now maintain 12 trees and 12 shrubs in the area over which I realize now I have no control. That purchase cost would be well over $1,000. 4 canopy trees with a maximum 100-foot canopies each will block sunlight and not allow growth of anything underneath, which won't aid in erosion proofing. Referring to the exception suggestion number 2, the plantings shall be completed and inspected by the planning staff. So I'm wondering if that means that the planning staff is going to plant those trees. No neighbors that I'm aware of have complained about this improvement, but everyone that I've talked to ardently feels that this is an overreach. When I am out gardening, everyone passing by says it looks beautiful and much better than before when it was an area filled with weeds and huge ruts. The benefit of retaining the gravel parking area is that it actually solves the gaps in the soil caused by large vehicles. I do not believe parking there will stop. In all sincerity, I ask that the exception be granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hartland. Commissioners, are there any questions of Ms. Hartland? Thank you, ma'am. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item CBE-22-07. I have several speakers. As I call your name, will you step forward? You have up to 5 minutes to speak. The first person, Stephen Perry.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stephen Perry. I reside with my wife, Judy Perry, at 207 West Road in Glen Sheila. I come today to support the recommendation of staff that this application be denied in toto and that the area be converted back to its original state of grass. All of us in the Glen Sheila area have the same issue in terms of whatever trucks may drive by. That is not a particular site for the applicant. We all face that. What makes Glen Sheila unique is that that green zone between the road and the bay does three things. It protects the bay. It ensures that Portsmouth has property values that don't decline by the installation of additional hard surface parking areas. And three, the aesthetics are important to all of us in the neighborhood. The RPA exists to make sure that the runoff and that the work that's being done to preserve the bay is carried forward. Enforcement is a requirement, as I understand it, of the ordinance, and that this exception would create an opportunity for other homeowners to petition the commission for similar types of parking. The removal of the gravel to put in the stones, if I understand that, or the pavers as recommended by staff, does nothing to improve or enhance the aesthetics of the neighborhood. It will still look out of place. I thank you for your time. I appreciate your consideration, and I hope that you adopt the recommendation of staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker, Rebecca Barclay.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to address the Planning Commission. My name is Rebecca Barclay. I live at 302 East Road, approximately 1 block from the Heartline residence. I have been a longtime resident of Glen Sheila, and I would like to speak to say that I hope that this variance is not granted for a number of reasons. In the first place, it's incredibly unsightly. Okay? The semi-permeable gravel is on a slope that feeds directly into 2 storm drains that empty directly into the river and is thus ecologically unsound to begin with. I would like to echo Mr. Perry's concerns about this being an unfortunate precedent that could result in decline in property values for other residents of the neighborhood. And the complaint about the trucks, 18-wheelers, so on and so forth, city trucks, is certainly a legitimate complaint, but this was a temporary situation because last year Glen Sheila was fortunate enough, as were many neighborhoods in Portsmouth, to undergo a hardening of the electrical grid because we are prone to outages during storms, and trucks were often parked there on a temporary basis to unload the equipment that was necessary. This happened in more than one spot, and although it may have been unfortunate for the Heartline property, everybody else kind of sucked it up and dealt with it, and we're very happy to have the improvement. So I would ask that you reject this proposal for a variance because it does nothing to improve or enhance the quality of the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Barclay. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker, Brian Early.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to make my presentation in front of you. My name is Brian Early. I live at 201 West Road. I'm at the opposite side of the peninsula from the Hartongs. I too have waterfront. I too have ruts. But as several neighbors, we've addressed it in another manner by putting up large stones along the roadside. Thus, we save the land and continue to be in compliance with the Chesapeake Bay Prevention Act, which this modification will not be. Second issue is liability. All of a sudden now, if it's granted, we have a public parking area on private land. So who's responsible for that? Is the city going to be liable if there's an accident or damage? Or is the private owner going to be responsible? So there's a big liability question. I don't think that's been addressed. And third, it is an aesthetic issue. We have a beautiful parkland area that circumnavigates around the peninsula. All the homes look at it. Everybody runs and walks there. The neighbors from different areas come into it and enjoy it. We even have the Women's Club that enjoys the beauty of the place. And this is going to change it. So I would ask you to seriously consider to reject this proposal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Early. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker, William Hargroves.
Good afternoon. My name is William Hargroves. No, not the architect. I live at 203 West Road in Glen Sheila. I would just echo what my neighbors have already said, except that I believe the proposal also requests a variance for a path going to the pier. My knowledge of the neighborhood goes back to the mid-1950s, and I've lived there for the past 32 years. And I've never known anybody who's had a pier that had a permanent or semi-permanent path going to a pier. Everybody's just always walked across the grass, and it hasn't been a problem. So other than that, I would request that respectfully you would go with the staff recommendation to reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargroves. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker, Chester Moscoffin.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I live at 100 Willow Way. It's across the street from Mrs. Hartline's house in the street. I see it from my house, and it is an improvement. What they did, I feel like what the other people are talking about, runoffs and everything, and the way that the gravel is put down, it saves the ground from washing out and going all over the place when these trucks do come by. and she maintains her yard very nicely. And what you see is an improvement on the property by keeping the runoff and ruts out of there. And the other people that has spoke, they don't even see it. They live way over on the other side of Glen Sheila. I'd like to see the gravel stay in its state right now, the way it is. It does protect the ground from being rutted up and the dirt being washed off. And I think it is an improvement of what it is. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Muscafian. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker, Judy Perry.
Good afternoon. I live at 207 West Road, and I have lived there for 50 years. So I do have a history to be able to share with you about our neighborhood. As some of the other speakers have stated, it is a grassy area. It's a park-like setting that we have respected for, well, this neighborhood is a little over 100 years old. So we do try to protect that, protect the park-like atmosphere, and also protect the river, because we understand what an asset that is to our neighborhood and to the city and the Hampton Roads area. There have been piers, and are still piers, that have been put up around the neighborhood that have never required a parking lot or a path, a graveled path, to get to them. The grassy areas, if you establish them appropriately, they will remain. And they are also important in keeping the soil. But when you have white gravel placed to create a parking lot, if you can imagine you're walking along and you see grass, then you see this white gravel area that's about 15 feet wide. And it's a little bit of a shock and takes you out of that sylvan landscape into something that's pretty ugly, actually. But besides the way that looks, it's the importance of maintaining what the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act wants us to do. It's guidelines for us to be certainly keep in mind on what is going in the river, and we need to be good stewards of that. And just one other small thing, we had a neighbor, he's moved away since, on 106 East Road, and he and his wife put a small arbor up across the road. It's all grassy area, but it's on the river. It's right across from their house, and it was a nice natural-looking arbor, but they laid flat stones down, and I would say it was probably about a 5 by 10 foot space. It wasn't large. The city came by, cited them from placing those barriers on the land and saying it was against the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. That's a small area of natural stones, and when you walk by, I wasn't even aware it was there. But they were made to remove those stones, those flat stones, from underneath that arbor. And so now it's just natural grass. So if you think that those folks had to comply in the way that they did, and if this neighbor thinks that leaving white gravel there is going to be okay when it wasn't certainly okay for the other neighbor, then that doesn't seem fair to me. And we certainly don't want to set a precedent of allowing this kind of thing to be on our natural area in our neighborhood. So thank you so much for considering this, and I appreciate being able to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Perry. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item CBE-22-07. If there is anyone here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman? Mr.
Yes.
Chairman? Yes.
Mr.
I just have thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to have a couple of questions, maybe of staff, maybe just for clarification. My understanding is that gravel is not really an acceptable use for being truly a permeable surface. I believe that that's correct, that it's under that code that we're not allowed to do that in that area. Am I correct in saying so?
Yes, that is correct.
And then my second question is also regarding city code. Even if this were to stay, it cannot be considered a parking area. Am I correct in saying that as well? That it's not a acceptable upgrade for parking?
That'll be correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, any further questions? If not, the chair is in need of a motion.
Yes, sir. I would like to make a motion to deny CBE-22-07.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a motion and a second to deny CBE-22-07. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. A yes is affirming that you want to deny it, and a no is that you disagree with the denial. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes.
Commissioner Page?
Yes.
Commissioner Curry?
Yes.
Commissioner Hines?
Yes.
This item is denied by a vote of 5-0. Our next item, UP-22-13, Parkway Plaza. Veronica Smith requests a use permit for an event space banquet hall in Suite 3981 within the Parkway Plaza Shopping Center located at 3985 Twin Pines Road in the General Mixed Use GMU zoning district. The future land use map of the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property as multifamily residential. The property is owned by Parkway Holding LLC and is identified as Tax Map 846, Parcel 2.1. The staff coordinator is Julie Chop. Will the applicant or representative for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
Good afternoon, distinguished commissioners and staff. My name is Veronica Smith, and thank you for this opportunity to stand before you today. I am here as a representative of the niche venue in lieu of requesting a use permit to operate a premier upscale event space in the Parkway Plaza Shopping Center, which is located off of Twin Pines Road in the beautiful city of Portsmouth, Virginia. The purpose and heart of the niche venue is to provide a safe, professional, upscale venue where memorable and workplace events such as weddings, receptions, showers, seminars, art galleries, business networking, corporate retreats, fitness classes, and more can take place. Our heart is to uplift and strengthen our community, to build diversity and stability where businesses continue to thrive in the city of Portsmouth. As the lead pastor of Impact Church, which is also located in that same shopping center of Parkway Plaza, Our heart's goal is to make our community and the lives surrounding it better, to promote a positive, long-lasting relationship. When it comes to the niche venue, we have several current and future goals in regards to functioning the niche venue event space. Some of our current goals include to increase the success, longevity, and trust of small business platforms in the Hampton Roads area, specifically in the city of Portsmouth, to maintain and create a healthy business environment that is safe and marketable, adding value to the city while also attracting long-term sustained revenue and reliability that reflects the heartbeat of Portsmouth and surrounding cities. To be a trusted, reputable business where clients are eager to refer others and do business with on a continual or long-term basis. To improve property market value by growing and expanding into new business markets of event and rental spacing that is cutting edge and affordable. A few of our future goals is to create a high-performance, profitable business that can strengthen the economic structure of the city and the community, to heighten market trends and generate high-level sustained income where the business can expand, to market a professional franchise that can generate employment and be a starting point for other businesses to emerge. So overall, with the niche venue, the opportunities and possibilities are limitless at the niche venue. We have big vision for what's to come. And I really want to thank you all the opportunity, just sharing as a heart of a pastor that is affiliated with that shopping center. Our heart goal is to take it all up. We really want things to increase, to get better, to strengthen in that whole community and provide a business that is reliable, that they can know that is there to strengthen the community as a whole. And that's what our option is to do, and our goal is to do as the niche, is to function as an event space venue. So thank you all for this opportunity, and hopefully you will consider our application for the use permit.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Commissioners, are there any questions of Mrs. Smith? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-22-13. I have no registered speakers. However, if there's someone here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Commissioners, is there any further discussion? If there is none, the chair is in need of a motion for UP-22-13.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for the approval of UP 22-13 with conditions.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion and second to approve UP-22-13. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes.
Commissioner Page?
Yes.
Commissioner Curry?
Yes.
Commissioner Hines?
Yes.
This item is approved by a vote of 5-0 with conditions.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Commissioners, we have one additional item that we need to vote on today. At our work session, we were informed that the organization meeting of the City Council will be on January 3rd, and that the Planning Commission needs to move its meeting to January 17th. I believe that's correct, Ms. Bowen. If there's no discussion, the chair's in need of a motion.
Yes, sir. I make a motion to move the January 3rd, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to January 17th, 2023.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motioned and second to move our January the 3rd, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to January the 17th, 2023. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes.
Commissioner Page?
Yes.
Commissioner Curry?
Yes.
Commissioner Hines?
Yes.
The meeting, it is approved, the meeting approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Yes.
Madam Secretary, I also believe that concludes our agenda for the day. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Commissioners, is there any further business? Mr. Baldwin, any additional items?
No, sir.
Hearing none, this meeting is now adjourned.